Have you ever heard someone say, oh my gosh, I have such a weak bladder? Or maybe you or someone you know experiences a little bit of leakage every time, they cough or they sneeze. Or I think we've all heard the mom jokes about like, oh my gosh, I can't go on the trampoline. I'm gonna pee all over myself. My kid wants me to go jump with them and I can't do it. Or maybe even you've heard someone say like, oh my gosh, like don't make me laugh so hard. I'm gonna pee all over myself. Well, here's the thing. Bladder leakage and bladder true dysfunction is super common, but it doesn't make it normal. In fact, bladder dysfunction, or I should say pelvic floor dysfunction, is as common as 1 out of every 3 females in this country experience some form of dysfunction. So, excuse me. So today what we're going to talk about is what is a healthy bladder? Do you have a healthy bladder? All right, let's dive in. So here we have the pelvic floor. You guys know I love this model. Here's my handy dandy pelvic floor model. So just to give you a little bit of orientation here, these last 2 vertebrae are the last 2 vertebrae of your lumbar spine, and then we get into the sacrum, and then that little pointy bone right at the very bottom, right in through there, that is the tailbone. These 2 bones right in through here are the bones that we can put our hands on each side, our hip bones right at the top there. This little guy is the pubic bone right at the front of the pelvis. And then of course we already talked about the tailbone, which is that little pointy bone right down in the center there. So we have several organs that live inside of our pelvis, but today we're going to be talking mainly about the bladder. So what is a healthy bladder? So the first thing I would say with a healthy bladder is a bladder that doesn't leak ever. So what I always tell my clients is that if you're leaking, if you're experiencing incontinence, if you're accidentally peeing on yourself at any point, even if it's just 1 drop or it's a complete bladder loss, it still falls under the umbrella of incontinence. Now, obviously we would venture to say that 1 drop is really, not as severe clearly as like someone completely losing control of their entire bladder, but still, we'll call a spade, it's still incontinence. And there is help for stress incontinence and for urge incontinence, which we will get into a little bit further on in these videos. However, so a healthy bladder is one that doesn't leak ever. And I just want to touch on the fact that a weak bladder is actually not really a medical term. So in other words, you may hear of a weak bladder, but really what a weak bladder refers to, the bladder itself isn't weak. It's actually the control is being lost somewhere within that system of the pelvic floor muscles and the bladder, because they work like this together, okay? So first thing after a bladder that doesn't leak is a bladder that goes to the bathroom. So that means you should be going to the bathroom every 2 to 4 hours. And that may seem like nothing to you. Maybe you go to the bathroom every 4 or 5 hours, or that may seem like a long time to you as well, because maybe you're actually going to the bathroom all the time. Maybe you're constantly running to the restroom. Maybe you go every 30 minutes, or maybe you pee and then you get up and you're like, oh my gosh, why do I feel like I have to pee again? We will talk about all of that in these videos. But healthy norms are every 2 to 4 hours to have a void. Next thing that I feel like is very important to talk about is nighttime. So I was just talking to a friend about this over the weekend, but if you are under the age of 65, the maximum that you should be going to the bathroom to pee at nighttime is 1 time. So that means that if you sleep, it doesn't matter if you're sleeping 6 hours or 10 hours, average, I would say, let's just average it at 8 hours. Still, you should really only be going to the bathroom 1 time at the max. 0 to 1 time per night is considered normal. Now, if you are over the age of 65, or someone who's over the age of 65, 1 to 2 times is considered normal. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about today is for healthy bladder is no just in case peeing. I hear this all the time with my clients. So just in case peeing is essentially where someone, empties their bladder just in case, literally. So that means that, let's say you got up, you overslept your alarm, and so first thing you did when you got up in the morning was you peed real fast, took a quick shower, brushed your teeth, etc., got dressed and headed out the door. But you have a long commute to get to work. So it's only been 30 minutes and you're like, oh shoot, I have an hour, maybe the traffic's really bad, I'm gonna pee, I'm gonna run to the restroom and pee just in case. And people start to do that and repeat that cycle, and next thing you know, your bladder is sending you signals all the time to empty your bladder because you have been training it in that way. And I think we will do another video, or I'll do another video specifically on just in case peeing and why that can be so harmful to your bladder. Another thing that kind of goes along with this is this idea that your bladder, when you go to pee, you should be sitting down and you should really be relaxing your pelvic floor muscles. And the length of time, if you want to count it in seconds, it should be about 15 to 20 seconds of a stream of urine essentially emptying from your bladder. So in other words, if you're going to the bathroom, you're just tickling just a little bit, a few seconds, or maybe it feels like you're squeezing out the last few drops, and you just peed 30 minutes ago or an hour ago, that means that your bladder is not really, so it's still filling up properly, but you've almost trained it in a sense to send those signals prematurely. So in other words, that's why you feel like you always have to pee. And maybe when you go to pee, you're like, I'm not even peeing that much. Well, it's because your bladder has been trained in that way. So those are bladder norms. I'm gonna go over them one more time. The first thing is no leakage. That is a norm. That is a good sign for the bladder. Next thing is every 2 to 4 hours you should be peeing. So that comes out to be about 5 to 8 times per day. Only up to 1 time a night if you're under the age of 65, up to 2 times per night if you're over the age of 65. We should not be doing any just in case peeing, and we should really be having a pretty full bladder by the time we sit down to pee. And so this includes trying not to squat or hover over toilets. I know there are some gross bathrooms out there, but it's really best practice to line that toilet. Let's say you're in a public restroom, line the toilet with lots of toilet paper, or put one of those covers on top and really sit, take some deep breaths in and relax and let the pee go. And there you have it. Those are bladder norms. If you've checked off all those boxes, congratulations, you've got a well-functioning bladder. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.